Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get the absolute privilege of speaking to one of my favorites, Mel Abraham. He is on the show today. He is a CPA by education, but an entrepreneur by exhilaration. He's the author of the #1 bestseller, The Entrepreneur's Solution: The Modern Millionaire's Path to More Profit, Fans, and Freedom. Great book, by the way. Everyone should pick that up. He's the founder of Thoughtpreneur Academy and Business Breakthrough Academy, where he helps entrepreneurs bring their businesses to the world and build the lifestyle that they want. Welcome to the show, Mel.
Oh my God, it's so good to be here. It's been a while. We've run in the similar circles and we've talked before, but so good to be here.
Always great to see you. I always feel inspired because your story, I mean, anyone who's had the pleasure of listening to you on a stage, I'm sure can attest to this, but you tell the best stories. I mean, your story of how you met your wife, like I know that story as if it was my story. For anyone that loves martial arts and just kind of that world, you've ever seen that movie Kill Bill, where one of the title characters goes away to a mountaintop to like study martial arts and this really intense, like, am I going to survive this kind of place? Mel has a story that's actually not a screenplay. It is a real life story that I've heard before, which I absolutely love. But tell us a little bit about yourself, because not everyone listening has had the pleasure of meeting you and has heard your story. So tell us a little bit about who you are, how you've gotten to where you are today, and sort of some of those lessons you've learned.
I guess my life is a little bit like Kill Bill meets the accountant. So
yes, that would be one of the captions, at least for, the memoirs.
So here's the thing, I'm a CPA by education, but I actually started my entrepreneurial journey at 11 years old. The very first thing that I did, what it gave me was the bug of what is it like to be an entrepreneur? Because I was sitting with my dad. We were watching a movie with Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis was playing the amazing magician and escape artist, Harry Houdini. So it was about Houdini's life. And I got fascinated with this guy that no chains could hold, no boxes could hold, but more importantly, how he orchestrated and created his persona, his business, an amazing showman and everything. But so what did I do? I started studying magic. At that time, I was probably 10 years old. And around 11 years old, I used to back then it was the RTD, the Rapid Transit District. I would take the bus to the magic shop, Magic Emporium, down on the boulevard every day during summer and spend hours a day in the magic shop, just learning and listening. And someone in there came in and said that he had a gig this weekend and this and that. And he was a young guy. And I looked at the owners after he left. I said, what do you mean a gig? He says, oh yeah, he does shows and he gets paid. I said, I could get paid for doing magic? And he said, yeah. So I looked at it and said, I got to do this. So I started doing, at 11 years old, started doing magic shows, dressed as a clown for kids' birthday parties, getting paid $50 for a half-hour show. Now, see, at 11 years old, that would make it 1972. So it was a little ways ago. So that was a lot of money back then. But the thing that it allowed me to see was this possibility of doing what you love and bringing something to someone else's life and getting paid for it. And I thought, I'm watching my dad as an engineer carpool to an hour and a half each way to work. And he's tired when he gets home. And I'm thinking, half an hour doing what I love, making a difference. That's what I want to do. And so that was my actual introduction to the entrepreneurial bug. And it never really left me. Although I went down the traditional path of getting an education and becoming an accountant, becoming a CPA, going to one of the large firms in downtown Los Angeles. Then you, having gone through the law firm experience, you know how they eat you up a lot. So it didn't take me long, probably 5.5 years in. I was 5 years in. 10 o'clock on a Friday night, looking out at the skyline of downtown Los Angeles, and then looking back at the partner I was looking for and said, this is the vision of my future. This is what it's going to be like. And here's this guy who's overweight, stressed out, probably an inch away from a heart attack because of the way he was living his life. And I said, I can't do this. I just can't do it. And it's a tough decision because, I have traditional parents, and here I was having a really good job. Was getting paid well out of school because I had passed the CPA exam before graduating and all of those things going on. And I was going to violate all of that because I literally walked into the office that night and said, I quit. I said, I can't do this. I'm living someone else's life. And there's got to be more. There's got to be a better way to use my skills and use the things that I have to make a bigger impact on the people that I want to serve. And I didn't look back. So it wasn't without its challenges, but that's actually when I went to Japan, as you said, and lived in Japan for a little while, trained in the martial arts before I came back and been on the journey that I've been on.
Well, the journey continues, that's for sure. Something you said made me realize something. Yes, we do have that in common. I worked in sort of big firm, corporate America, nice building, mahogany tables, conference tables, like the whole thing. And I myself am a reformed corporate workaholic. I like to think of myself as reformed. It's hard. When you're a workaholic, there's always a tendency to be pulled back in. And I often say that the reward you get when you're successful or good at something is people want to throw more work at you, or they want more, demand on your time a little bit more. So it's a constant struggle. But I wonder if I was able to break free from that corporate grind, and you were too, because both of us had this experience where we had jobs that were more fun before we became these like corporate hamster wheel folks. Because I like you, I had some fun in entertainment. I worked as a party pumper in college. That's where you go to big parties and bar mitzvahs or whatever it is, and you're the party pumper. You're the one that's out there trying to get everyone on their feet dancing. I worked for a DJ company and had this amazing, fun job. So I knew that earning a living didn't have to be this complete grind. And I wonder if that was one of the reasons I was able to actually just say goodbye and say, there are better ways to earn a living out there. I'm going to find those ways. I'm going to make my path, but I'm not going to turn into, like you said, I looked at some of the longtime partners at the law firm, and they were pulling the late hours and away from their family and really stressed out. And I didn't really see that path getting easier or lighter as I went forward. I actually saw it becoming worse and worse over time.
Yeah. I remember the partner I worked for at the time when I quit his name was Tom. And I remember he says, you're on fast track to partnership and we're making the path for you. You'll be one of the youngest partners in our firm. And it was a large firm. And he says, you're totally screwing this thing up. And for a moment, I thought, he's right. But then I looked at it and I said, you may be right. I may be screwing this up. But the thing is that if I'm going to screw it up, I may as well screw it up when I'm still young enough to fix it. And he didn't have anything to say to that. And he kind of supported me on that journey and said, all right, how are we going to do this? What do we need to do? But I think you're right. It's something that I did a post this week about it saying, so many people will say, do what you love and the money will follow. And I think it's an absolute fallacy because trust me, I love chocolate. And if I eat chocolate, the only thing that's going to follow is a waistline. And so what we need to do is put something before that. And I think that's the thing that drove me. And that is find a way to create value in someone else's life with the things you love. And then the money will follow because we're in a value exchange economy. The fact is no one will buy something from us unless they value it more than what they got to give up. So I have to be driven by value and value creation first. And that comes from the transformation, the products, the services, the solving of pains. And if I can marry the solutions I provide with the joy and the passions I have, then we have a magic equation for a future.
Absolutely. And it's tricky, right? It's not always easy to come up with that combination of something you enjoy doing, but you also make a living from it. Because I also find a lot of people make the error where they say, look, I love making candles. So I want to start an Etsy store where I make candles. Or I love baking. I'm going to open a bakery, a cupcake bakery. Or my absolute passion is riding horses. So, maybe I can start a career as a horse trainer. And, I caution everyone because sometimes the thing that you love to do would be sort of tainted if you made it your main source of income or if you tried to convert it into a job. I mean, some hobbies are meant to stay hobbies. Some things are more enjoyable when there's no obligation attached to it. And so, yeah, it's not always easy. It's not just do what you love, the money will follow. We have to be strategic about how we design our work life and how we design our income, really, and our income sources. And, I'm big on diversification. So I love it when people say they have multiple streams of income. That was my big lesson when I had to spend a month in a hospital once, and all of my time trading income died. Like on the day, the hospital didn't even have Wi-Fi. I mean, they had this terrible Wi-Fi. It blocked you from most Google products and Facebook and everything. So, I mean, I was really limited in the kind of work I could do hour by hour. But then at the end of that month, looking at my income, I still had royalty income. I still had rental income. I still, there were a lot of things that I was able to delegate or still earn something from. And that's why diversification is important. So even if you are someone that you time trade, you get paid by the hour that you put in as your labor, that's fine. I don't think people need to give that up. I still do legal work. I still have legal clients. I still help people buy and sell commercial and residential properties. There's a lot of my time still involved, and I enjoy that work, and I've made it work for me. But I love the fact that I also have online courses. I've also have books I've written and published, both under my name and under ghost names. Those are out there and they earn royalty income. I mean, there's a lot that we can do to diversify, and I love that. I have a question for you because you've talked about balance versus harmony and sort of the two concepts. What does that mean to you, and what can we learn from that?
So this came about, I was a single full-time dad raising my son from age 5.5. And it was the same year that I got pushed out. So I left the big firm, went to Japan. When I came back to Japan, I had a small firm that I became managing partner of with a couple of partners. And the reality was that a number of years in, they came to me and said, we don't want to be partners with you anymore. They literally pushed me out the door. I had no clients, no client backlog, no cash flow. And I was $300,000 in debt because I just purchased a home in Southern California, which is not the cheapest real estate market around. And it happened to be the same year I became a full-time single dad. It was the same year that Jeremy came to live with me. And I did what most entrepreneurs do. I dug my heels in, I put my head down, I started running on the treadmill, and I started running faster. And all of a sudden I started to get clients. I started to get cash flow. I started to get referrals. I started to get all those things. I'm looking at Jeremy going, this is going to work. We're going to keep the roof over our head. We're going to be able to do this. And then Jeremy comes in, and he comes running in from school one day, and he says, Daddy. I said, yeah. He says, I drew a picture of you at school today. And I kneel down, and he gives me this picture of his blue felt tip pen. And there I am as a stick figure and standing in front of two computer screens with a phone in each ear and the one on the desk ringing. And in a moment, that 6-year-old boy taught me the most important lesson of my career, because I realized I was screwing it up. I was totally botching it. I was totally getting it wrong. And I could have easily looked at him and said, kid, this is for us. This is for our future. This is for us to be able to live so we can have the things. But he didn't see me as a dad playing with him. He didn't see me as a dad at Disneyland. He didn't see me having a relationship. He saw me as this workaholic in there. And I had to come to the grips with the fact that he didn't care about what the profits gave him. What he cared about was my presence with him. And then I had the family and everyone else saying, hey, Mel, you have to have work-life balance. Here's the challenge I see with work-life balance is that it insinuates that there's things on either end that offset each other. But I don't think life's that way. I don't think that we carve ourselves up and say 8 hours I'm in a work bucket and then 4 hours I'm in a home bucket and then 3 hours or 4 hours I'm in a sleep bucket, whatever it is. And then we start carving our life into these little pieces, and they live them separately in compartments. And I think that's what it indicates when we start to say work-life balance, indicates one is pushing against the other, yin and yang, that type of thing. But I really think what we're searching for is what I call work-life harmony. understanding that there's certain times in your life that certain things are going to take a front seat and certain things are going to take more of a back seat and vice versa. And they shift and they flow. But there has to be a harmony that moves you towards a vision, towards something that is bigger, something that is meaningful, something that's impactful in that way. And so I look at it and say, how do we live life intentionally, consciously, and aware? Because when I do that, and I intentionally make the choice that it's the season for me to do a lot of work. It's the and I know that versus allowing outside forces to dictate what my life is going to look like, to dictate how I'm going to control my time. Listen, I do a lot of work with people in their money stuff and all that stuff, whether they have $1 million, have $100, or tens of millions of dollars. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, if you don't control your time, no matter how much money you got in the bank, you're still poor. And so I want people to look at it and say, how do I harmonize the hours in the day to use them the way I want to use them and know that I'm intentional in doing it and that I haven't allowed someone else to dictate that to me?
Such important lessons, really, for everybody is also what we learn from our kids and those around us. I had a similar moment, and this is after I'd made that transition from being what I thought was the workaholic stage in my life. And now I feel a lot more harmonious, to use your word, and not balanced, but truly harmonious. Everything I feel works together. But I still had my daughter say to me, I hate your phone, which was just kind of an eyebrow raiser. Like, my phone? What's wrong with my phone? You sometimes draw Peppa Pig art app on it. Like, what's wrong with it? And she said, you're always on your phone, which I feel like I'm really not. I have a very flexible schedule. I can work from home most days, but she's right. I mean, I do monitor text messages and emails, and I feel like my phone liberates me from my desk because I can be out at a park and I could be checking my emails real quick. But to her, she sees me paying attention to this little box and not to her in those moments. And so that was really sobering for me, because no matter how far we go, we still have constant progress that we could be making. And I now know I need to actually really be strategic about when I pick up my phone and look at it, and start to have more sort of tech-free time as I move through my day. How do you stay sane? Because I know you have a lot of demands on your time. It's like, how do you manage in your day?
What you're talking about is this thing that I call the paradox of passion, is that when we find that groove to do the things that we love to do, we don't see it as work. And so we tend to, or we have the risk of not putting boundaries in. And when we don't put boundaries in, then what we look at and say, I love doing what I'm doing, so I'll do it 10 hours a day. But to the outside world, to those that matter to us, they see it differently. And I am not immune to this. I've done the same thing. And that, I learned little things that I know I need to do. I've been married. Stephanie and I have just hit 10 years married in June. And look, our first year and a half was a rough year and a half. I was older. She was older. I mean, I was 50 by the time I got married. So I had a lot of, let's just say, bad habits,
Sure. We all collect bad habits the older we get. I have found that out.
Oh my gosh, but there was a couple things that we started to understand. One is pick our battles, the things that really mattered. But two is something that someone said to me early on. And that is that especially in a relationship, it's not that, because you could easily look at your daughter and say, you know what? She knows she's loved. I could say the same thing about my son. You could say it about your spouse. I could say it, and this conversation was in the context of a spouse that said, she knows she's loved. And the person said to me, they said, it's not about them knowing that they're loved that matters. It's about them feeling loved that matters. So ask yourself the question, is what I'm doing right now going to allow them to feel loved? And I go, oh man. So if I start to feel a disconnection or something like that, that's the question that I come back to. What am I doing right now to help her feel loved or help him feel loved? In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to have a granddaughter, little Emily, coming into my world, who's going to wrap me around her finger. But the question of how to make sure that she feels loved. And we can transition this to, what is it we do for our customers? What do we do for our family? What do we do? But those allow you to set boundaries. Now, direct to your question, it really is about boundaries, and it's about understanding what matters. In June 2019, I got diagnosed. They found a 5 centimeter tumor in my bladder. I was out speaking, I was traveling and this and that, and they found a 5 centimeter tumor in my bladder. By the time when they went in for surgery, and they looked at me as I'm going into for surgery, he says, look, he says, it's on top of the prostate. You might lose your prostate. We might have to put a tube and a bag in for the kidney to filter that because of where it's at. And if it's really bad, you might actually lose your bladder. And I'm like thinking, what? I mean, life just got turned upside down for me in a moment. And when they went in, 7.5 centimeter tumor, it wasn't 5 centimeters. And it was the hardest removal that this surgeon, he's one of the top surgeons at UCI, has ever done. And the thing that came out, one of the things that came out of that was this realization. Someone said to me, I bet you got your priorities straight. I said, yeah, there is no such thing as a priority list, is what I realized. There's one priority, and it's life. And that when we start to realize that we have, and I knew this, and we all talk about it, you only have so much time here, but we give it lip service. We don't take it seriously. We don't look at it as if it's real until mortality stares you in the face. And I got slapped in the face with it. 2 weeks before that happened, I was flying home on a G5 on a private jet. Life was really good. And then it got turned on its head. And the point is that when you start to understand that it truly is limited, that the one thing that we have a limited, finite amount of is our time, and we don't even know how finite it is, that the Lord, God, the universe, whatever you believe in, has given you a specific number of slices of life to use. And when you say yes to something, you're giving away a piece of your life, a piece that you'll never, ever get back. And so as I came out of this whole thing, I'm 1 year clean. We've had 3 surgeries, 4 tumors, 37 treatments. Everything's good. I feel great. That's why I'm back in the game doing the things that I've been doing. But the reality is that it made it easier for me to say no to things, because if I couldn't say yes to giving a slice of my life away that I knew I wouldn't get back, I wasn't going to do it. And if I couldn't say yes to the fact that I could dedicate 100% of my passion, my love, my everything to that moment that I'm saying yes to, I shouldn't be doing it. And so I had no guilt. I have no guilt around it to be able to say, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this, because I value the slices of my life. And I hope I have a whole lot more, but I don't know how many I have. And I don't know how many none of us know. And that's why this whole idea of living intentionally becomes so important. We spend so much time trying to figure out how to make more money. And I do a whole lot of work with people on money, but the reality is that we're afraid to waste the money, but yet at the same time, we waste our time.
So much to unpack. I mean, just the lesson on perspective, right? And you told 2 completely different stories that are about perspective. I mean, one is about health and how we feel when we have a mortality event, like something that just brings to light, hey, we are mortal. We have an organic body. It runs down. There will be an endpoint to all of us and to everyone too. I know I've had couple of sort of philosophical moments where I even consider my little kid, and that she someday will get older and someday she will, expire. That's time is so precious. It is our most precious commodity. And oftentimes we sell it so cheap, right? We just spend it doing kind of mindless things, not even related to work, but even just some of the things we do where we self-medicate, or lots of people spend time just watching, I'm trying to think of like the worst TV show I can possibly think of. I don't want to insult anyone out there for their choice in TV shows, but just think of something totally mindless. Like you'll never get those minutes back. But time is so precious and we don't get it back. Another lesson on perspective is when you talked about your son, and I'm having these memories of my daughter looking at me and saying, I hate your phone, is to her, my explanation had been, oh no, honey, yeah, I'm on my phone, but mom's with you. Like I have so much time with you. If I still had my old job, you wouldn't see me for 12 hours, 5 or 6 days a week. And to her, she's like, yeah, that sounds horrible, but I also don't like it when you're on your phone all the time. Like her perspective, she isn't comparing the workaholic life to the current life and saying, wow, this life right now is amazing. She's looking at my life now and saying, Mom, you're just tied to your phone too much. You should live a little more and you should be in the moment and spend more time with me. And I get that because her perspective is completely different from mine.
Yeah.
So even though I think now my life is like completely harmonized and amazing, I'm learning I still have a ways to go too. And hearing your story makes me realize, am I really living as fully as I can? Because you never know when you're going to get that phone call. You never know when one checkup for just something routine, a mammogram or whatever, is going to turn into something you need to face and work through and deal with. I just got an email from one of my favorite law professors from school. We stayed in touch long after law school. He's just amazing. And it's really sad. I mean, he sent a kind of a broadcast email saying, hey, look, I'm dancing a waltz right now with both cancer and sort of chronic kidney failure or kidney disease. And I've got a DNR on file and I'm going in for back surgery next week. And it was so sobering, so sobering. Thank you for sharing that story, because I think all of us need to keep that top of mind and not just something that we think about once a year.
Without a doubt. A little backstory on it. I moved from a little further north, about 100 miles south to where I live today, Laguna Beach. And at the time I left my doctors behind because it was so far away. But I always checked the pulse on my money, the finances, my business, my clients, my relationships, all that stuff. But I didn't take the time because I was living healthy. I was working out. I was eating, for the most part, good, other than my sweet tooth. So I had none of the risk factors of cancer, but for 7.5 years, I hadn't seen a doctor. And it wasn't until I had some symptoms that I said, maybe I should go see a doctor. And it's not that I would have eliminated or made it the cancer not show up. But the thing that would have happened is that we would have at least caught it sooner, where I wouldn't have been in this very, very precarious position of losing my prostate, losing my bladder, affecting the kidney. And it just wouldn't have been such a dire situation had I checked the pulse on that domain of my life. And so my question for those that are listening is that if you look at all the domains of your life, business, everything, are you just regularly somehow checking the pulse? Are you just every once in a while, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's annually, something where you're sitting back saying, how am I related? And you'll know the frequency. You can't check the pulse on your relationship once a year. That needs to be regularly. But you just like they schedule, I got to do a colonoscopy every certain number of years. Mammograms, I don't do that. But mammograms every certain, there's intervals. But if we're not checking things on a regular basis in the various domains of our life, something's going to suffer. And that's the thing that I think I started to realize. And so trust me, I get checked all the time on everything.
Well, and I love that you've taken all of these experiences and you've now shifted a lot of your business into helping other people gain financial independence. Yeah. Because with financial independence, you do have the ability, well, first of all, for better healthcare, right? That's one, especially for anyone listening who's in the US. You know this is true. The best healthcare requires some financial wherewithal to be able to get the top doctors. Mel, I'm not sure every surgeon would have been able to get out. What was it, like 7 centimeters? You said 7 centimeters? That's a huge, and you said it was like the most complex one this top surgeon had ever done. Well, that takes resources, good health insurance, being able to have that financial, not just independence, but some level of affluence, some level of surplus where you can take care of your loved ones, where you have enough left over that you can contribute to charitable causes you find really meaningful for your life. And just to support your family, because stress is one of the worst things you can do to your health is to live in constant stress. And for a lot of people, finances are the source of constant stress. So tell us a little bit about this mission of yours to help people with their finances.
I love this question, and thanks for asking. Just talking about stress real quick, and not to take a tangent, but there is an organization, a nonprofit organization called stressinamerica.org. That's how bad stress is. Okay, is that there's an organization to deal with it, and a study that they did prior to the pandemic. So I think it's actually going to be worse today if they did the study. Prior to the pandemic said 74% of the people that were studied said one of the largest stressors in their life is money. It's one of the biggest reasons that people get divorced. It's one of the biggest things and one of the problems is that we just don't even talk about it. Well, I'm done not talking about money. I want to have frank, sane conversations around money in a way that, because money is agnostic. It's not negative. It's not positive. It's a tool that you get to use, and you can, just like I can do damage with a hammer, I can build chapels with a hammer. I can build castles with a hammer. I can do different things. It's how we wield the tool that matters, and I think that's the thing that really starts to come into play. And why this came about was that once I got diagnosed with the cancer, I knew that my sole focus had to be healing the cancer. So I literally pulled myself out of my business. I knew that I was going to fight the cancer emotionally. I was going to fight it physically. I was going to fight it spiritually, energetically. I was going to do all of that. But one thing I didn't have to fight it with was financially, because I did things right over the years. Now, your financial situation, as hard as it may be to hear, your financial situation is a sum total of the decisions and the behaviors and the habits that you did in the past. Now, some things are out of our control, but our response to them is well within our control. I'm not immune to it. I had 1/3 of my net worth wiped out in 2005 because I got caught in a Ponzi scheme well into the 7 figures. Between me and 2 other buddies, we lost over $4.5 million. So I'm not exempt from making mistakes. The question is, what do you do with them? And so the key is first to understand that you have in your hands, in front of you, the ability to be financially liberated, as I call it, that you are truly financially free and independent. And that's more about your time than it is about the money, but the money is going to give you the time. Second is really just getting a mastery of some of the key fundamental principles of wealth. And they're not complex. Now, the financial services industry would love to keep you believing that it's complicated because it serves them. Now, I have nothing to sell. I don't sell investments. I sell futures. I sell dreams. I sell your ability to go and grasp them. Someone else will get the investments to fit those dreams, to fund those dreams, to do those things. So I have no problem saying that some of the stuff that they do is inappropriate. It doesn't take a lot. My son is 31 now. His wife is 28. They're expecting their first child in 2 weeks. They have, at that age in California, they have 3 homes and they have over $1 million net worth. Okay. And the reason for that is not because it's fully earned. No one's given it to them. We've given them skills. We've given them tools. They've gone and built it. They continue to build it. And the point is that whether you're 28 and 31 or 38 and 41 or 48 and 51 or wherever you want to go, every single person has the ability, no matter how far off it seems for them, to take control of their finances, to be financially independent so they can buy back their options, they can buy back their alternatives, so they can buy back their time. So a lot of my keynotes, a lot of my speaking is all on this. My show, The Affluent Entrepreneur Show, is all about the intersection of your business and your money so you can have the life that you always wanted. And my program, The Affluence Blueprint, is all about the processes that we use to make that happen. And so if we can just master the principles with an understanding that we can take control over time, it's not hard, okay? It's simple. It may take work. So I'm not saying it. So if you're in debt, we may have to get you out of debt. That takes a little bit of time and it may take a little bit of discipline. But no one out there, I believe money, if you're seeing money issues, they're a symptom of something else. They're not the problem. Too often we think we have money problems. We don't. The money issue is just the symptom. We have behavior problems. And when we behave differently, when we do differently, we have habits that are different, we'll get different results. And that's the thing that needs to happen, but no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to have the conversation because money is taboo. Well, guess what? No problem is in this world has ever gotten solved without having conversations around it. So let's have the conversations.
Amazing. And a lot of people have come through your programs. So you've seen what the common sort of starting point is, the common issues. What is one tip that you can pass on that is sort of that universal, first step that a lot of people can take? Something easy, maybe I call these things low-hanging fruit, something people may be overlooking, but that you see as just a common thing that a lot of folks can just do now, today, this month, this week? What's something you can pass on to listeners that could be something they can do to improve their financial situation in at least one small way, quickly, actionably
This is
today?
great. So the first thing, and this is going to be, let's take this as half. I'm going to give you two things because I think the first thing is really, really important. If you're in a relationship, in a committed relationship, you have a significant other, you have a spouse, the first thing you do is have a conversation. The first thing you do is open up a dialogue and say, how do we want to live our money life? How do we want to have, because unless you both are on the same page, there's this friction that goes on and it's a challenge. So one of the first things that I want people to do is to say, let's have some real conversations amongst the people that matter to us, that we're in this life and we're in this boat together and we're rowing, and make sure that we're rowing the same direction. That's the first thing. The second thing is this, and I am not one that looks at it in the sense of, I want you to worry about debt, but we'll talk about debt in a second because I want people debt free. Here's the most important thing. Too often we think we have time. I had a car service I was speaking in Montana. They sent a car service to pick me up. This kid just finished college. He was 25 years old. He's driving the car and he says, I'm getting a job. I'm taking the summer off. I'm doing driving. What would you give me as a 25-year-old college graduate advice as far as retirement goes? I said, well, the first thing is to stop calling it retirement, because when we call it retirement, it's easy to kick the can down the road. It's easy to put it off. It's easy to say, I'll deal with it later. Here's the challenge. You know that if all you did was put $50 a week away, okay, $50 a week away, that turns into over close to $500,000, okay, over 30 years, depending on what it's invested in, okay? Point being is that it doesn't take a lot to make a lot. It takes getting in the game. And the earlier you get in the game, the more time does all the heavy lifting. So I don't care whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, get in the game. I don't care if it's $10, $20, $100, $1,000, get in the game. The fact of the matter is that the reason I tell some of my clients, just want you to start putting $10 away, is not the $10. It's the behavior modification that we're getting with the $10. Because once you get used to 10, you're going to go to 20, and then you're going to go to 40, then you're going to go to 80. And all of a sudden you're putting $500 a month away and you're going, oh my gosh, I've got $1 million in the bank. I got $500,000 in the bank. That's something that people didn't think about. So the first things first is, I think, have a conversation. 2, get in the game at whatever level you can, just to start exercising the muscle in the way that you can. Now, you may say, well, if I'm only putting $10 away, what do I invest it in? Nothing. We're building muscle. Put it in a high yield cash account. Now, high yield in today's terms is still less than 1%, but it's more than what you're going to get in a savings account. So put it in a high yield cash account and let it accumulate over time. Or alternatively, if you work for a company that has a 401k or a retirement account, start putting into there. Like I said, I don't care whether it's $10. I don't care whether it's $20. I just need you in the game, consistently exercising your savings and investing muscles. So I think those are the first 2 things that I would do.
I think people are going to take that advice, but want more from you. I know you have a podcast, you've got programs. How do people connect with you? How do they find you online? How do they get more? I mean, just starting with your podcast, because anyone hearing this episode is obviously a podcast lover and already in that podcast mode. Where can they find you?
For the show, they can go to the affluententrepreneurshow.com, the affluententrepreneurshow.com. It'll take you there. And so you can get access to the show notes. The show is totally about this. It's about affluence. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about business, the intersection of business and money. How do we scale your business so we can scale your money, so we can scale your life? Having those conversations. It's a combination of me teaching frameworks and processes to do it, bringing other folks on that I am interviewing, and also taking questions from the audience. So if you have questions, you have challenges, like I've had some people that are asking questions about refinancing or buying their first home or saving for a down payment or which is better, a Roth or a regular IRA, those kinds of questions. I do Q&A shows. And so it's a place where we can have those safe conversations and not demonize the dollars that we're trying to create, so we can have the independence that we deserve and we can have and create the legacy that we want.
I love that. My late father had a theory. He said the money's out there. Money's just out there like it's like a river. It just flows. It's always there. You just have to reach in and take some. Like in some ways that it's this energy flow throughout the world. There is financial independence out there for everybody. You just have to find your lifestyle too, because what I think is really interesting above all is that someone with a $250,000 a year salary will feel broke and strapped for cash and, paycheck to paycheck because of its perspective, the way they live their life, what their budget is, how much they spend, and, what maybe they have failed to build with that income. And someone else on a pension may actually feel much lower than that as an annual pension, feel their quality of life is amazing. I mean, they maybe moved somewhere where the cost of living is sort of equal to what their monthly income is, and they're living an amazing, relaxed life, feeling financially independent, feeling financially free, even at a completely different level. So I think the numbers are really relative. And I love that the way you teach people really focuses on so many different aspects of finance and life harmony. That's big. It's not just about, hey, everyone, here's how you can make this dollar amount net worth. Here's a program for you. No, it's much more holistic. And I love that about your teaching. So for people who want to connect with you, other than the podcast, do you have anything coming up that we can help you promote and help get the word out? Because I know you've got a lot of education that you offer for not just entrepreneurs, but really anybody that's looking to build their financial worth.
Yeah, I actually have a 7-day money plan challenge that is coming out in probably the next 6 weeks that we can make sure that we get. If they just go to my website, melabraham.com, and tag me or opt in or anything like that, we'll make sure that they're on the list when we roll that out. But 7 days to build a money plan that matters, to give you the foundational elements in place so we all baseline ourselves.
Well, my advice to everyone listening, make sure you check that out. Connect with Mel Abraham on any of his different platforms. Subscribe to his podcast. I consider him just an amazing resource and authority on so many different topics, not just business and life, but also just philosophy. And I think you're an amazing person. It's our privilege to have had you here today. I am so glad that you are doing well, healthy, strong, and accomplishing so many different things. I'd love to have you back on the show sometime. Thank you again for your time today.
Oh my God, thanks for having me. And you tell me when, I'll be here.
Guess what, lifestyle solopreneurs? If you don't yet have an online business earning you enough passive income to live the life of your dreams, I'd like to suggest you consider trying out Kajabi. Kajabi is an all-in-one solution where you can create and teach online courses, publish a paid newsletter, launch a free or paid podcast, process payments, build one-on-one coaching portals for your clients, and much, much more. I personally use Kajabi to power numerous successful and profitable online businesses. Lifestyle solopreneurs, there's a free trial of Kajabi waiting for you at this link, www.kfreetrial.com. You can try Kajabi for free, no obligation, by going to www.kfreetrial.com. Again, kfreetrial.com, and that K stands for Kajabi. Starting an online business helped me break free from that corporate grind, and I hope it does the same for you. You have nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, and see you next time.